In the beginning, building muscle is as simple as doing full body workouts 3 times per week, gradually adding weight to the bar, and doing that on a consistent basis. These rapid results, typically experienced within the first year of training, are known as newbie gains. And unfortunately, this magical period is short-lived. Over time, you'll go from adding 10 pounds to your bench press each week to just 5 pounds, and eventually you'll be lucky to hit an extra rep with that same weight. As a natural lifter, this is where you'll need to make significant changes to your training. If, however, you continue to do the same thing you've been doing, your results will only get slower and slower until eventually they come to an end, resulting in months or even years going by with no noticeable changes to your physique. In this video, I'm going to give you 5 reasons you stopped building muscle and how to avoid these pitfalls so you can continue making gains without having to resort to illegal pharmaceuticals. Reason number 1, you're not doing enough. A study by Montero and Lundby, refuting the myth of non-response to exercise training, found that some participants just wouldn't make progress on their fitness program. This may lead one to believe that their genetics suck and they just don't respond to training. But once the scientists added more workload to their training programs, the non-responders suddenly started making progress. Generally speaking, your training volume has to increase over the course of your training career. For newbies, they can make optimal progress on something like 10 sets per muscle per week, spread across 3 days. But for an advanced lifter, their minimum effective volume, or MEV, could be on average 15 sets per muscle per week, just as a simple example. A popular study published in Medicine, Science, and Sports and Exercise compared doing 1 set, 3 sets, and 5 sets per exercise. If you do the math, that's as little as 6 sets per week for some muscles and up to 45 weekly sets for others. They found that the more sets the group performed, the more muscle they built. This confirms what we already know about volume. As long as you can recover, more volume produces more growth. This isn't to say that you'll need to perform 45 weekly sets to build your triceps, but rather that if you're only doing 12 sets per week for a given muscle and aren't seeing results, then it makes sense to bump up the weekly volume by adding a few more sets. Remember, over time, your body adapts to stimulus. If you're no longer seeing results from your training, it's likely you just need to do a little more work. Reason number 2, you're not doing the right exercises. While an isolation exercise trains only the target muscle, a compound lift engages multiple, like the bench press, squat, deadlift, etc. The main benefits of training with compound movements are twofold. 1, you're accumulating more volume for multiple muscle groups, and 2, because multiple muscle groups are involved, you'll be able to use heavier loads. Now, I'm not suggesting that you skip out on isolation movements completely, but rather that the majority of your lifting should focus on heavy compound movements. A good recommendation would be to perform compound lifts for 75% of your training and isolation movements for the remaining 25% in order to strengthen any weak links. Number 3, you're not deloading. According to the fitness fatigue model, over the course of your training block, your fitness improves. But due to all the workload, fatigue slowly creeps up. Your rest days are simply not enough to dissipate this residual fatigue. So eventually your fatigue gets too high and limits your performance. If you want to keep pushing hard and actually progressing, you need to take a week to deload in order to reduce fatigue. A deload week is a week of active recovery in which you reduce volume and intensity in the gym. The benefits include reducing fatigue, reducing psychological stress, relieving joints, and improving gains after the deload. Now, if you're afraid to take some time away from training hard, consider this. One study published in the European Journal of Applied Physiology compared lifters bench pressing for 24 weeks continuously versus those bench pressing for 6 weeks on and 3 weeks off for the same 24 weeks. After 24 weeks, both groups gained the same amount of muscle and strength. In other words, it took the periodic group only 18 weeks of training to achieve the same results the continuous group did in 24. Had the periodic group taken just 1 week to deload rather than 3 weeks away from the gym completely, I'd bet the results would have been significantly better. Personally, I'd recommend taking a deload week every 4 to 12 weeks. A simple way to do this would be to decrease the intensity by 10% and reduce the sets and reps by about 50%. Think of it like taking 1 small step back to take 2 big steps forward. Reason number 4, you're not mixing it up. There are 2 major reasons for mixing things up, and they have nothing to do with confusing the muscle. For one, it's simply more psychologically stimulating to have some variation. If you do the same movements every single time, you'll eventually get bored and find it hard to push yourself even if you don't realize it. Second, we actually have research showing that a little bit of variation will help you build muscle. One study published in the Journal of Strength and Conditioning Research compared constant exercise, performing squats, and varied exercise, performing squats, lunges, deadlifts, and leg presses. After 12 weeks, the varied groups gained significantly more muscle than the constant groups. To sum it up, you need to be making intelligent changes to your training program. I recommend waiting at least 12 weeks before making any significant changes, but smaller changes can be made with secondary movements or isolation exercises a bit more often. Now, this isn't to say that you shouldn't make certain lifts the focal point of your program, but rather, if you've been squatting twice per week for 24 weeks and are finding it hard to progress, it might be a good idea to swap out one of those squat sessions for the leg press or vice versa. Reason number 5, you're training like an amateur. Up to this point, you've probably followed plans that are barely actual programs. Many of them are just one-off workouts you found online, or maybe you've been following a routine. Don't get me wrong, daily workouts or weekly routines are a great place to start, but instead of thinking on a day-to-day or week-to-week basis, it's time to zoom out and think on a bigger scale. This could be month to month, and if you're a bit more advanced, it could be phase to phase. Let's take 2 individuals who've been training consistently for 2 years as an example. After feeling stuck for a couple of months, trainee A looks online and finds a 4-day upper-lower routine. Trainee B, on the other hand, is subscribed to the Musclemonsters channel and learns that after lifting consistently for a few years, he needs to train a bit more strategically. Instead of downloading a weekly routine to follow, he puts together a properly periodized 16-week plan that looks something like this. Block 1, 12 weekly sets. Block 2, 14 weekly sets. Block 3, 16 weekly sets. Block 4, 18 weekly sets. At the end of the 4th block, he takes a deload and then restarts the 4 phases, but this time using heavier weight. Although both trainees will experience results, it's no surprise that trainee B will progress faster and continue progressing over time, while trainee A continues to hit walls and bounce from routine to routine. Bottom line, if you've been lifting consistently for several years, it may be time to zoom out a bit and start thinking more on a monthly or phasic basis rather than just weekly splits. So there you have it, 5 reasons you stop building muscle and how you can avoid these pitfalls and continue making progress. Did you find this video helpful? If so, click the like button below as it'll truly help out the channel. Also, if you're looking for a done-for-you training and nutrition guide guaranteed to add slabs of mass to your frame in the next 90 days, then claim a free copy of my book, Bulk Up Fast. The book has already been paid for. All you have to do is cover the small shipping fee. Just click the link in the description, tell me where to ship it, and I'll send it to you anywhere in the world. And if you're enjoying the content and want to support the channel, all we ask is that you click the subscribe button and turn on post notifications so you never miss another video. Peace.